Everybody, welcome back to some more Faceit League action, which is our second and final game of the evening. We had a little fun down in South America. Now we're here for North America, which, Dex, is the most interesting game going on tonight. Now, that's not because it's the only game on tonight. It's a very interesting game for, I honestly, a variety of reasons. These are two teams that have come up specifically from the expert tier. There are a couple of familiar names on them, but this is just really getting to see what they can do on the outside. And for Vivacity, we've already seen what they can do is they took a really good win to get their season started.
Yeah, a really good win. Maybe a little bit of a surprising win there, just on how good they actually played on Wednesday. I mean, we were able to cover them in that one. It was a really, really good win for them over Element Garden. We went into that one saying, hey, Element Garden able to stay in Masters tier from last season, had not necessarily the best season, but they're able to stay in through that LCQ. Vivacity got in through the LCQ as well. And we're like, hey, this team with Element Garden has that experience. You probably expect them to come out on top tonight. No, but Vivacity, they looked like the dominant team throughout that entire series on Wednesday. Interesting pivot, though. Like you said, a lot of recognizable players. Kashir, Cabe, Smack, as we've been able to see them a little bit in some of these World Cup tryouts. Nodi, Elemental Guy. Again, another player we've been able to see a lot in some of these World Cup tryouts. This is a team that I think quietly could find themselves towards the end of the season fighting for that last playoff spot if they aren't securely in, because this is a really good roster, at least on paper.
It definitely is, and it'll be fascinating to see what kind of what kind of turn they actually take. Again, we've seen teams like this that get a really good run early on in the season, able to kind of bring themselves forward a lot. When things kind of moving forward, specifically for Interesting Pivot, they have a rougher start to the schedule than I think most teams realistically do. A lot of teams that look tough on paper, like Team Z, Dildox, Foxhounds, Amplify, Shikigami. Not Shikigami, Amplify, Shikigami. They're down. They're
Not
down
even
in a
here.
different tier. Not even here. Whole different tier. But my point is that they have a lot of tough teams early on, so going in here, getting a win today is kind of important. It's good to know where they're at, but also get off on the right foot for what is a very heavy start to their schedule.
Yeah, especially since they had to reschedule their first game. I believe now they're playing it tomorrow or Sunday. So they're going to be able to at least play still their first two games that they were supposed to play this week before the start of next week, which is probably better than what some other teams are going to be saying, considering, Hunter, like you said, this is probably the most interesting game of the night. Not just because it's the only game of the night, but just because, hey, the teams here are both teams from LCQ. But I mean, you want to be able to get off to a good start. Interesting Pivot hasn't played their first game. Vivacity has been able to shake off some of that rust. It's going to be really interesting when we see Interesting Pivot go in, if they're going to come out a little bit rusty, if they're going to come out looking like how we saw some teams in South America come out, especially Ragnarok. While we did see them lose tonight, Wednesday, they looked polished. They looked well oiled. They didn't look like they had zero rust on them. Different story tonight, but still in the past. Interesting Pivot, though. It's going to be really interesting how they come out. Vivacity, I'm really excited to see this team here again. I thought they really impressed me Wednesday, and I told you, like, hey, this is a team that I would like to revisit sooner rather than later. Didn't expect it would literally be 2 days from the last time we visited them, but hey, we're here now, ready for a good series, and we already know what our first map and our first ban is going to be. Hunter, we're going to everyone's favorite control map of Lijiang Tower, and the ban from Vivacity is Wu Yang.
Yeah, Wu Yong has become a support with a very niche outlook, honestly. For like a short period of time, felt like a really good sport to play. He is still solid and good in its own right, and to be fair, it also just protects the support category from getting things like the Kiri or the Lucio banned out. Allows teams to kind of stick to their more normal style, so we'll kind of see how that adapts from there. Interesting Pivot have their own ban in place, either got to be the tank or the damage in this category, but again, much like the Wu Yong, feel like they probably go down the route of safeness, because even though they have been able to see Vivacity play once before, I don't know how much stock you put in the initial game. I think you still go with, hey, what is something just we don't want to deal with for this opening bout?
Yeah, do they go to the tank line? Do they go with something like the Diva or the Domina? Do you go to DPS line and go with something like maybe the Emre, maybe the Tracer? I feel like those are probably the safest bans right now. Vendetta can still definitely be banned out. Zara can still definitely be banned out, especially heading over to a map like Lijiang Tower, where you can kind of play a little bit of everything here if you're comfortable on it. It leaves a lot there to really be desired for some teams. So while you want to make that safe ban, still making a really good ban is what you're looking for here. And the ban has been put in, so we'll figure out what it is here in a moment. But again, Hunter, I'll go back to Wednesday. I was very impressed with this Vivacity team. We saw them play. They looked like a really, really well put together team coming up from that expert tier. You look over the other side though, and these are all names that we recognize for interesting pivot. I will say this though, second ban from them is going to be the Soj. So again, I feel like just another safe ban and not the worst thing, especially as we already talked about.
Yeah, no, it's safe. Again, it's a solid hero that can do a lot of things. There's a possibility you're going to see them kind of pivot over towards the Emre instead and kind of go about things that way. But we'll have to see when it's coming to form instead. Again, while Emre has had a lot of staying power, has gotten a lot stronger and a lot more used as things go on, doesn't mean that it is the pick to go with, but we'll kind of just have to wait and see how teams adjust to that situation as we're getting ready to get this thing properly underway. Just waiting for, I think, just one person to connect as... Hey, guess what? It's the red side again, Dex. It's the red side.
You might be onto something. You might be onto something at this point. Yeah, it looks like Temper's game crashed, but Temper is back in, so we should be getting into it momentarily. But we actually have to wait for the entire countdown to end before. But I mean, hey, it should still be a fun one here. Coming in, we know our first point will be Night Market. So again, a really good map, I think, to start out on. It does really force you maybe into some certain play styles. Poke and I think Dive might be the end of being the best ones for this map. And it's gonna be interesting to see what we see come out from these two teams. I'm not gonna put a lot of faith or a lot of credit into what we're seeing come out from them while they have this little bit of time to just kind of mess around as we wait for them to get back into lobby. But it's gonna be interesting to see what we see come out from these two teams early on.
Yeah, fascinating it shall be. We're going to come back from our pause now and hopefully properly get into this thing. Hopefully not too many shenanigans, as apparently the top right corner, the punch has gotten rid of nobody. It's pretty funny.
Oh, on my screen, it got rid of, I believe it was Makoto.
That's fascinating. But we'll see what these teams are going to pull out. We see teams kind of pivoting towards things like the Domina, like the Diva. There is a lot of variation between the tanks that are a little more niche than anything else. But we'll see what we'll have to get things started. And we have, potentially Zarya coming out. I remember Axe before, I believe, did play a decent amount of that Zarya in that opening matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say one thing. This is probably really the last week. It's the first week of Faceit, but it might be the last week we really see a big diversity at the tank line right now. OWCS starts up tomorrow in both EMEA, Korea, and North America. So you're going to start seeing a lot of teams maybe gravitate towards what we're seeing in that OWCS play come out here for metas. But right now, Diva coming out here from interesting pivot. On the other side, like you said, Axe on the Zarya. I think it's going to be actually a favorable battle here for them. But the interesting thing, Jono showing us the cat. A very, very interesting pick here. But at the moment, it kind of looks like they're just trying to keep a little bit of pressure on the back line, maybe force him some spots where it will allow Cashier to just dive onto both Fern and Morlock.
Yeah, because one thing you have to give credit on the Cat for is that they can play from pretty much any angle, and it can be really rough to deal with. But you lose Naughty really early on, you're just kind of forced to back out of here, take your reset, and just get out alive, as everyone else looks like they'll be able to as well.
Yeah, we didn't even really mention the fact that we're seeing this a very interesting comp come out here from Vivacity with the Vendetta and the Venture. We saw this a little bit on their last match on Wednesday, and it worked out very, very well for them in the short amount of time that we did see it. And I like it, especially going up against now the Domina from Cashier.
Yeah, trying to do so right now, Makoto, over on that Vendetta as well. This is very much the classic comp we're used to seeing, but you have to compare just that Zarya, I think, works phenomenal with Venture really was like the original iteration of this style right here, but they go and cut down Cashier, and again, down early is not going to make this easy. You have Naughty and Jono still hanging around on the point, but realistically shouldn't be enough.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to me how long we see this cat stay out here from Jono, as we already see Cashier going to their third tank now, going over to the Ramatra. I think it's going to be a little bit better to the Zarya. We always talk about whenever we do see this matchup that you have to remember when Zarya first got to be very big in the meta, it was that counter there with the Ramatra to be able to slow them down a little bit. But still, I think this cat from Jono is only really going to be left for this one life as long as they live.
I would agree in that instance right here, and you're worried about trying to get some ultimates online. The bright side is Axe hasn't gotten a whole lot of charge, so you have an opening coming up here with the Katsune Rush, Pulse Bomb, with the Blade as well, but smacks down early, starts taking away that possibility. You get rid of one with Infern, but that's not going to be nearly enough here.
And this entire point just feels very weird right now, and it feels like you're still just trying to see interesting pivot play, this very unique comp, and it's just not working for them. And now Jono gets off of the cat, but it might just be a little bit too late. I mean, Elemental Guy and Smacks, they do have their ultimates ready to go, but you look over now at Vivacity. They're gonna have beat. And that honestly might be it for this entire fight, especially finding Elemental Guy early means no blade.
Yeah, I mean, Beat's going to come out here to stabilize through, and unfortunately, I mean, even without the blade, who knows how things would go with it. As Makoto was just trying to clean up a couple of bodies, this will eventually be done, and just 100 to 0, really good start here for Vivacity, picking up where they left off in that last game.
Just a very, very weird start to this series. And I mean, Vivacity, yeah, like you said, picking up right where they left off last series, but for interesting pivot, I mean, hey, at least they're kind of sticking with their name of interesting with that composition that came out, but you saw it there. Kashir, 3 different tanks. Jono eventually got off of the cat to go over to the Lucio. I think now you're starting to see them maybe get into something that looks a little bit competent here, but I mean, there's not really much to gauge off that first round other than Vivacity. They just handled it in stride and took care of business there. No big swaps coming out as Makoto probably is going to be a TP out and then a swap either back over to the Vendetta, or straight back over to the Vendetta. But you do see Nodi going over to the May now. So, I mean, you're looking a little bit better here if you're interesting pivot, but still, you need to be able to find something here early on.
Yeah, this is really interesting to try to cut people off right here, because I know he gets sent off the edge. Oh, that's so unfortunate. And this should be just the big cleanup going through from here. Kashir got taken care of once more, as that will be your first one done and dusted. As Axe being taken down.
No.
That's I need an explanation on that one.
They tried to go after Jono, but missed. That's just the easiest way to put it right there. They actually just straight up missed.
Oh my
Jono.
god, again, dude. Again, Temper takes another one off the edge. Oh, and that means they're going to be able to go into this one as Hunter can't hit much to save his life. Elemental Guy, though, is down early. Boop almost takes Naughty off the edge, but unfortunately, it might not matter a whole lot. This really is just a stall game at this point. Naughty is going to be able to get within the ice block to survive for like a moment longer as they get taken out. And this is going to be the cleanup coming through. Morlock getting a couple of their own, as honestly at this point, you might have to take a white room rotation instead.
This has just been an incredibly weird start. I mean, just the plays we saw from map 1 for interesting pivot, then it's immediately over into whatever we saw there in that first fight. I mean, it's just very, very weird as you already see Temper trying to into that backline and find one. I mean, Morlock at least gets the kill credit for that, but again, just continuing the consistency, this consistent weirdness.
Yeah, and now Tectonic trying to make a little bit of space for them and try to clear out some more bodies if possible. And Kashir is lucky to still be hanging in here, going to try to get out alive, close to going down, but eventually will indeed fall to Makoto, who's keeping things rocking on that Vendetta. And so far, I mean, there might be 20% on the board, but this has been all interesting pivot so far.
Yeah, and again, the only reason interesting pivot had, that Vivacity had to give up that first cap there was Makoto fell off the map. That's basically it. They probably would have been able to hold on to it here, and nobody again.
Yeah, and yeah, so many of us for Morlock. It has been insane thus far. Beat still sitting by for Morlock, by the way, has an opportunity. Someone else goes off the edges. Shano gets their own boop. Unfortunately, I don't think it matters in the short term right here. As with 75%, everyone else still has to back out as the Lucios bounce each other around, but both will stay alive.
I mean, you're gonna be able to get some point presence here right now if you're interesting pivot, but you need to get something going here fast because you do see Temper coming back into the picture pretty soon.
Yeah, Annihilation is ready to go though. You're gonna do everything you can to try to burn Axe here. As you see the aggression, gonna get cut off from that sound barrier. Gets hit with it as Elemental Guy's copy is immediately gone here as sound barrier for Morlock. I don't know if that caught on to anybody, by the way, as they'll get cleared out. Dex, did that connect even?
It connected, and I don't know how efficient it was. Axe, though, getting off of the Zarya here for the first time, going over to the Malga now instead. I mean, all you really need to do here right now, if your Vivacity, is be able to find a one-fight victory. And, I mean, granted, you've been able to find so many early boot picks. That might be all you really need here very early on to see Elemental Guy immediately just having to fall back behind some cover as they're already starting to get chunked down a little bit.
Yeah, definitely already starting to, as You're trying to stabilize as best you can over on this point, but losing on Elemental Guy is not the best way to get things started with Axe. Back over here on the Malgo, we saw the same adjustment the other day on Busan. Ended up working out brilliantly, and right now, it's starting to do the exact same as a little more stall comes through, as Elemental Guy can try to touch if they will, but it will not matter. That's going to be a 2-0 here to get things going for Vivacity. Interesting pivot. They definitely try things and try to make something work, but the moment they do, Vivacity just finds an answer.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that was definitely a map. That we saw there. It seemed like those last couple fights were probably the best fights we saw that entire round, or that entire map, but it was just weird plays. And, like, that's, an interesting start for interesting pivot and Vivacity here. Map 2, I think, is going to be a much different story. I think you're going to see both teams come in there and have compositions that really make some sense out of the gate here, but it will be interesting pivot that gets to pick this next map. So I think they're going to try to bring it to something that they feel most comfortable on. And I feel like normally the safe bet would always say, just look at one of the Flashpoint maps. I feel like that's where you normally see a lot of teams just go to. Or if it's not a Flashpoint map, well, it's going to probably be actually, no, Kings Row isn't in the map pool, so we're not going to be able to see that. But Hunter, I think you'll like the next map we're going to.
I haven't checked yet, but I better be Gibby, or else we have many, many things to talk about. It's Gibby! All right, yeah, Gibraltar to get things going, and obviously Injury Pivot gonna get the initial ban to start things out here. You've got a couple of realistic choices, but Tracer, I don't really mind that. I think there's a lot of things that disrupt you, but in terms of what's gonna be realistic for this map, Tracer makes enough sense.
It makes enough sense for this map, but you also have to remember we didn't see a Tracer at all last map there from Vivacity. So you saw the Vendetta and the Venture come out, and it worked like magic there. However, this is a completely different map. Vendetta might still have a little bit of a place. Venture, on the other hand, it could be a little bit harder to get to work, but definitely still could work on this map. It'd be really fun to see what Vivacity decides to ban out, because do you go after the support line here? Do you get rid of the Ana or the Brig, so you don't see that traditional kind of dive backline that you see a lot on dive maps like Watchpoint Gibraltar? Do you go after a tank and say, hey, let's just get rid of the Diva here. Let's just get rid of one of the dive tanks that we don't necessarily want to see. And no, it looks like I called it right with the first time around. It's gonna be the Ana here. So they're gonna break up that traditional backline. So you might see a Brig Kiri, or you still just might end up seeing a Kiri Lucio.
There's a chance it is just a Kiri Lucio. We do see things like the Alari be pulled out occasionally for maps like this. But obviously we'll just have to see what this scenario actually is going to be moving forward. Even with a map like this, I think what's really important to bring up is because, again, remember the changes that came through with this going back to just natural Overwatch is Gibraltar getting some changes to its map. Ones that I think benefit other playstyles a little bit. The fact that some rotations are a little bit easier to be able to deal with, where you are not coded to have to run the same 2 or 3 characters on a roll, due to just not having the ability to, take high ground quicker. I think there's more ability to do so, especially on second point. It's become a lot easier. But we do see a lot of teams struggle with that initial start, so we'll see what we get in the situation as we're just waiting for a couple of people to connect to the lobby, as, yeah, everyone came out for this one. To be fair, it might be the only game tonight, but again, it's really significant for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, especially, yeah. Oh wow, that's a lot of people. especially because when you just look at it here, Vivacity, we talked about it a lot on Wednesday. We already talked about it a little bit here before the start of the series. They came up from that expert tier, and a lot of times with those teams that come up from expert tier, especially through the LCQ, you never necessarily know what to expect from them. And normally, I feel like a lot of people always say, well, okay, we could probably expect that they'll be towards the bottom of the standings, but I've been really impressed with this Vivacity team. The 4 maps that we've seen them, even though the last map was by far the weirdest map we've seen them, they still played their game. They looked great doing it. Just Gardens was so weird with all the environmental kills that you don't even see that many environmental kills that often in just quick play games, as we're put on hold. It looks like just a little bit of a reset.
Yep, we'll see what ends up going down. We'll have to see. Again, both these teams do have subs, a whole 3 subs able for Vivacity, by the way. So we'll see what ends up going down, as it looks like everything does remain the same, as hopefully we'll get everybody in here. I think some players were just locked out, but it looks like they are back in just like that, as we're getting ready to go into our second map of Watchpoint Gibraltar.
And I think if you're interesting pivot, you need to be able to show something here fast. That last map was so weird for you, and just looking at it, no matter how you really dice it up, you need to get something going here. And doesn't look like actually, is there a sub for them?
There is. Cabe has come in for this map, replacing Elemental Guy.
Elemental Guy's still in.
Oh, not Elemental Guy. I mean, the original thing was Elemental Guy. I think that was the issue. So Naughty is out right here, and Cabe is taking their place. That's what I think the initial pause was for. A misinput, we'll call it.
Okay. Well, coming out of the gate, you do see. John was showing us the Mizuki. I'll say this. I believe Mizuki is definitely playable. You just almost need to play him safe at the moment. They can still do a decent amount of damage, which I think is good, especially for a tank or a support on the defensive side. Smack's gonna be playing the tried and true Kiriko, and now you're starting to see some more swaps come out here from Vivacity. I'm not gonna believe. I'm not gonna believe the Weaver, but Axe on the Malga, I think might be sticking. And okay, they're basically sticking with what they played last map, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, like, I thought they were gonna potentially TP or like put Axe on the high ground with the pedal, but no, they're just sticking him down. To be fair, there's no one on this entire Earth besides Kashir that wants to drop down on that point to stall out Axe on the Malga.
They might be the only person that actually can stall out Axe on that Malga there without being afraid of dying within 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's the scary part right there. But if they're going to keep kind of trying to burn away at Axe, Fern is going to build up really fast to the consider rush of things keep going down that way. BC in the back line, Assault coming through as you take a bit of a trade out as Kashir is lucky to still be in that mech. He's getting pressured big time, by the way, as they're going to keep getting pushed back further and further. Makoto takes out the trade, which you don't hate because ultimately, even if you're sparing this out, you would hope you're moving the card, but
you're not.
They have not. They are just now doing it.
You bought all that space essentially for free, and now you're going to have to give it essentially back up for free because you didn't have one person on the card. An unfortunate play there for Vivacity coming out of the gate, considering that was a really good first fight for them, forcing back interesting pivot. But now you look at them, you're going to allow interesting pivot to come right back in. You already just see Elemental Guy going straight for the backline.
Yeah, oh man, Keshir was in a really rough spot for a second there. Lots of people hanging out on the backline. Fern is taken care of, and Makoto, unfortunately, all alone, eventually going to get cleared out here. And while Temper does take care of some business, this would be rough to have to turn around as Axe is just completely surrounded, as the cleanup will come through. Bright side is they get it mostly through the underpass, but besides that, we're looking at ultimates for the next fight.
You're able to get through the underpass, but that's the hardest point to get through. Axe now giving up the Malga, going over to a D, but a mirror Kashir here. And, I mean, nope. Second guessing that, going over to the Azaria instead, and I think that's going to work out here a little bit better for them, but it basically forced them to kind of play the cart here the entire time. However, I think that's still going to really work out with Makoto and both Temper being able to really allow those two DPS players to play as aggressively as they want.
Yeah, exactly. You got Kekai Sanctuary coming up around the corner as well, which is going to give them a lot of sustainability to potentially work with coming out here. But Elemental Guy taken out early once more. Cave might have to go a little aggressive here. Does have this override protocol ready, but with Kashir knocked out of the mech and no recall, or re-rim mech, I should say, you just have to back out of there and try to keep everybody else alive.
Yeah, and Kashir was so close to having the bomb right there. You heard me say ooh because of that reason. Now you're starting to see just immediately Vivacity going straight in. They want to be able to try to find a very early fight win here to build as much space as they possibly can, Hunter, because every time we'll see this map, we will talk about how hard it is to really start pushing through the hangar phase here, where the defense team definitely has all the angles to really play out. But here comes the override from Cave.
Cave, a character that is no stranger to the finals, by the way. Very seasoned member here. I'll face it, as at the very least, it's going to force some bodies back. Unfortunately, they lose out on Jano. Now they're in a really rough situation, getting forced back further and further, as Axe going to be able to get out of there alive with Sound Barrier online for Morlock. And there's no hesitation, despite technically being up 5-4 right now. They're going to move in aggressively here, as Jano has to force the Kekai Sanctuary out just to keep their bodies alive.
Axe going to fall right there, and there should finally be a moment here where interesting pivot should be able to finally stabilize. They're going to be able to do that. Temper, the only one really to escape their lives, but it looks like some members of interesting pivot don't want to allow that to happen, but no. They're going to have to just let them fall back to the safety of their team. 3 minutes still on the clock here, though, for Vivacity to kind of push through this point. No ultimates on their side. You're going to have the bomb ready for Kashir, though. So Kashir can actually play a little bit aggressively here. Know that they're going to have that remech, but you're going to have to be watching here for Vivacity once they get that Diva out of the mech.
Yeah, sure doing the best they can to kind of stay up in here. Is trying to force some bodies out, eventually does so. Makoto and Temper both extremely low. One will eventually get punished. The other grabs the mega health pack here. But Kashir is kind of given the go to start moving in because, well, Axe is still hanging around. Doesn't really have a lot of charge. And it's just really having to stabilize on this high ground as Kashir is just going to back out of there.
Again, I think this is a smart play here from Interesting Pivot. They have actually Vivacity in a good spot here and here, a little bit split up, but you need to be able to find someone here early on, and no one can get up to that high ground, which you see a lot of members of Interesting Pivot kind of playing from at the moment.
Yeah, oh, Jono just gets solo grabbed, by the way, and gets cleared out. We'll see how worth it that ends up being right now, as that puts you in an interesting position, because you have solo heroes with Smack, who is running for their life, by the way, is lucky to still be hanging in there. But somehow, some way, they are sticking in this thing, as Smack did get out alive.
Max gets out live. Continuous now out here, though, from Fern. The immediate response is the override here from Cave.
Yeah, it's definitely making Suspect more like it's around the corner from having a sound barrier. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot as the blade cuts through one, and Elemental Guy, importantly, well, was going to stay alive, but gets cut down by Makoto just as quickly. So now they need to take a moment and stabilize.
I mean, yeah, they're going to be able to stabilize. I mean, you see all four members of Vivacity right here outside of Axe. Ooh, Timber barely able to just burrow themselves there, get that large health pack, but now you're seeing the rest of this Vivacity squad get back into the picture here. But Kashir still holding on the bombs. Max does have the Kitsune Rush, which I imagine is going to come out here right now.
Yep, definitely there. Remix still available for you for Kashir. Hasn't needed it quite yet, but is likely going to need it here momentarily. We'll be lucky to stay in here as you're going to try to stay alive. Makoto is going to cut down the body, and Axe stops the remake from coming through as well. Jono's coming back with the Kekai Sanctuary, but it'd be so risky to use here. Unfortunately, you really can, as the supports are going to meet an untimely and late death.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're Interesting Pivot right there, you did get a decent amount of time off the time bank. You only see it right now, about 210 left for Vivacity to kind of push through this final point, which is a very difficult point. It's a very long point. I think it's a sneakily long point here. I feel like a lot of people forget that, but Temper has the Tectonic Shock online. Like you said, Jono does have the Sanctuary ready to go, but outside that, Kashir now swapping back over to this Ramatra, struggled on it last map, but we only saw it for a very, very short time before that round really ended.
Yep, but Kekai Sanctuary going to be thrown out, going to give them plenty of room to breathe as Temper gets hit just as they're about to burrow underground, so plenty of space to work with now in the 4v4, but Makoto is continuing on all of that pressure, forcing everybody back here, is going to be able to likely get rid of their third right here with Elemental Guy, and unfortunately Smax is close to getting jumped as well, but is fighting back pretty well as the cavalry is coming back to keep Kashir alive, but Axe is trying to hang in there, get that Graviton Surge potentially online, but they do need to take a quick moment to play safe.
Yeah, they're just going to fall back, regroup here. Like I said, grab and beat, about to be online. Same thing with Kitsune Rush and Sundering Blade. So if you're Vivacity, you're actually in a really good spot here. Override Protocol going to be online here for K, but Morlock falls early on, so you might see a little bit more of a disengage here from Vivacity, especially with the Override coming out.
Yeah, this isn't going to get a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. It's going to clear them out, but now you're sitting with a minute left as they're looking right now. They know somewhere out here Temper's alive, but Temper has not shown their hand yet.
Well, Temper is now going to go straight after Kashir.
Yeah, making some space. The solo grab over onto Kashir, who's surviving through a lot of damage. Might not be able to do sound barrier used to keep them alive in the 4v4. Kitsune Rush is active, available. And unfortunately, you're going to have to pull the trigger right here. Try to get a retouch. Unfortunately, such will not come through as Makoto clears out the last couple of bodies. 32 seconds to finish this attack, and now, Interesting Pivot, their turn to get things going. And it feels like they found something for a bit there, again, back on second point. But, again, a scenario where the ult economy just doesn't really go their way, and that grab onto Jono we talked about earlier, that ends up paying dividends big time.
Yeah, and again, I feel like it's just Vivacity picking up right where they left off from last series and last map. I mean, they're playing a very well-oiled kind of they're playing like a very well-oiled machine right now. They know what they're doing, and they know what they're looking for in every fight. Interesting Pivot. They finally, I think, are able to kind of relax into the series a little bit because remember, they had their game on Wednesday rescheduled till this weekend. Now, this is their first game, so you're starting to see them shake off that rust, which I talked about before this series started, saying like, hey, if they have it, they need to get rid of it by the end of that first map. But that first map was so weird that they finally started to really shake it off in that second point push there for Vivacity. And yeah, they looked a lot better, but still, I think that's a very defensive side of point to push through. It did take a decent amount of time there for Vivacity finally be able to break through. But now look at what we're seeing here from Vivacity. You have the Brig, you have the Kiriko here, and Axe going back over to that Mauga. Very, very interesting. They started off with the Mauga last round. You have to remember that. They looked really good, and then they swapped back over to that Zarya, which seems to be their bread and butter pick. Outside of that, no big surprises coming out here from Interesting Pivot. Elemental Guy, though, late swap here over to the Echo, especially seeing this Mauga on the other side. It might be something that actually causes Axe to play a little bit more patiently here, not wanting to get themselves chunked down with those grenades and to be focused out by that focusing beam.
Yeah, very much so. So we'll see where we end up pivoting from here in this engagement. You're seeing just guys here trying to keep themselves over on the point, but I love the way they're going with this. They realize where the strongest place to play here in Axe, and the rest of the squad is just hanging through the underpass. And unfortunately, between having, you know, the M-Ray, the Echo, that is not the place you want to have to take a fight at.
Yeah, especially with the backline here for Vivacity, having the Brig and the Kiri means that they can both play a little bit aggressively, knowing the Suzu going to be able to keep them alive, and the Brig shield going to be able to keep Morlock safe after they use that bash.
Yeah, definitely so. But either way, you see them trying to chip away. Unfortunately, it's going to take a level of investment or someone peeking their head at the wrong time to take this one away. And obviously, that's a rough situation, as you see Temper. He's going to get out of there momentarily. He's kind of just hanging around to bully whoever goes to the high. But big grenade coming through there. It's going to clear out Makoto, and this could be the beginning of the end for this hold right here. It's already taken up a decent chunk of time as Morlock going to be cleared out. And Kashir and the rest of the squad should be able to pay dividends and clear out everybody else.
Yeah, but now if you're Temper, I think you were going to try to get yourself out, but now you're not going to be able to. And it's going to be really interesting to say, even if we see a touch come out here now from them, you might just given up first point almost essentially for free here, as you immediately see Axe get off of the Malga going right back to the D.Va now. Haven't seen them play this hero just yet. It'll be very interesting to see how they play it.
Definitely will be. But still, copy available here with a meter and a half left. Temper's going to go in aggressive as Elemental Guy would love to get a bomb online and clear out a bunch of space. It's going to fall just short, though. He's going to get cut down. Would love to remech. Does get the remech out. Now with K finding a really good pick, this puts them in excellent territory. This bomb will not end up being used, though, as they'll be taken out once more, time expiring. But it might just be enough to make this happen. And with a little bit of finish coming through here, they will be able to 4:15 on the clock as everybody got to get those bad spawns as Temper switches over to the Sojourn.
Yeah, more and more swaps coming out here from Vivacity here, and I don't necessarily know if I like them just yet. Again, Axe, that was their first life we've seen from them on the D.Va. Temper, they're going over to the Soj. Saw this a little bit from them last time, and I feel like these are swaps that are saying, hey, we cannot play how we were playing before. That was only for that composition. Now that you're off the Malga, we have to play more like kind of a normal composition here right now. So the Soj coming off them is going to be, I think, a benefit for them in the end, but they're going to have to deal with a lot of ultimates here pretty early on from Interesting Pivot, as they're finally, like I said, starting to get a little bit of a foothold in this series.
Yeah, definitely trying to, and what would help them a lot is getting to the second point as fast as they realistically can, but that is a really difficult task. But with Axe already out of the mech and basically already cooked as it is, this is such a go-ahead moment to move on forward, get yourself a ton of space to work with, but Morlock somehow stays alive for an extra moment before being cleared out, and now this is where you put 3 bodies on and you try to lock this thing in right here.
Yeah, I think you're going to get this point here. I don't think anyone from Vivacity is necessarily going to try to sacrifice themselves to the point. You already see Axe and Makoto just kind of falling straight back, saying, hey, we're going to give you this point here. 4.5 minutes on the time bank, Hunter. I mean, this is a great round here for Interesting Pivot after a map and a round that were essentially kind of weird when you really look back at them. But now I think they're finally starting to get something going here. Still have 2 ultimates online, about to have another 2 ready as well, but 3 ultimates here for Vivacity. So this could be the moment where Vivacity finally is able to kind of slow down this Interesting Pivot round.
Yeah, we'll see if we end up heading down that route as early Sound Barrier comes out here. Jono gonna let it loose. Cave does not catch onto it, but everyone's gonna hang alive momentarily. But Makoto shuts people down. Kashir knocked out of the mech. And for Makoto, while they do die with that, it's worthwhile as Kashir is going to get some major staggering. Will eventually be finished off, though.
That was an interesting moment right there. I thought maybe they should have let Kashir just live because it looked like they were going to go run back towards spawn. Remember, they have a bomb ready to go, so you almost, I think, just gave him a little bit of a blessing in disguise right there. 2 ultimates, though, invested there by Vivacity. You still have 1 ready to go and about to have 2 more others online, but you look over now at Interesting Pivot. Bomb and another duplicate here from Elemental Guy. Smacks, though, has this Consumer Rush online, and you already see Elemental Guy using the dupe into a Emre.
Yeah, unfortunately, this doesn't have the care for it, and it's going to make you a little bit of space, I guess. It's something. But now you have Kitsune Rush ready to be thrown in. Fern lets theirs loose first and foremost. Max is likely did not pull this trigger and just try to get everybody out alive if possible, because at that point, it just became too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, and now Kashir trying to get themselves out. Makoto trying to chase them down, but they actually do get the DMAC there, forcing out the bomb. A huge play there now from Vivacity. I think that was going to be one of those ultimates that could have been a big difference maker in a later fight there for Interesting Pivot, but still, Kitsune Rush and the Override Protocol going to be online here for Interesting Pivot this fight, but you have the same ultimates minus the Kitsune Rush ready for the other side.
Yeah, Elemental Guy almost getting taken out now. There, Kitsune Rush is coming through. Temper going to make a little bit of space here. Hits Elemental Guy right in the face. That's going to be enough to finish them off. And now Temper continuing to force some bodies back. And while there's plenty of disruption from Kashir, it's not going to be enough. Jano finished off. DMAC once more coming through. And this is where Kashir might consider making an actual swap.
Yeah, I think, yep, going straight over to the Domino. I like this swap here. Normally, what we've seen in the past, the Domino normally wins fights against D.Va here, but we did see an excellent Domino-D.Va match go with the way of the D.Va earlier on tonight in South America, but this is the moment right now. Already 2 minutes of that time back you had going into this final push are gone. Makoto almost taken out pretty early on here, though.
Yeah, big jump gonna go up. It's already causing a lot of disruption, and Fern, the first one to go down, but still, lots more to go as Zach's gonna have to hit the remake here to try to stay alive, stay in it. Is going to barely remake, by the way, and it's just gonna get demacked just as quickly. Big clear, but it's gonna come through here. Still a Sunbear online, but Morlock about to have theirs to boot.
This is also the moment where if you're actually might be making that swap as well. Morlock does have the beat to kind of stable them out here if they need to be playing for that point control. However, you see the Malga coming back out here. I think this is a great swap into this Domino. So much damage comes out from that Malga that shield is going to be melted almost immediately.
Yeah, Soundbarrier is available. John's going to let it loose. Kashir barely gets cut up, but it's just being bullied all the way back to the initial corner. Now, you don't have much going for this fight. You're going to have Fern, who, by the way, already has another good Kitsune Rush to throw back into their face, and that fight will just be done and dusted right there on the spot.
I understand the use of the Kitsune Rush right there, but if I'm Vivacity and if I'm Fern, I hold on that one. You're coming up to 3 good ultimates now. Now you're only going to have 2 that, and you really need to hold on to that Kitsune Rush. I feel like just to be able to match Max, because you look over at the Interesting Pivot squad here. You're going to have Blade, you're going to have Panopticon, you're going to have your own Kitsune Rush, and then another Override Protocol online here. But the Sundering Blade out here from Makoto early on.
Yeah, and the cleanse, it was well timed, but Jono not catching onto it. Down to Elemental, got to find a little something with this blade, and then gone rid of 3 with it now. This is just Axe and Makoto hanging around. Keep in mind, 2 really rough people to have to deal with, but dealt with they have been. It's a mad dash to get out to the point in time, but a pivot they will not be able to make. It's only a 3-second difference as we head to extra rounds.
I mean, hey, at least if you're Vivacity, you look at that and say, at least we are able to hold them so that we have the better time bank going into overtime. However, it's 3 seconds. It's not a difference, really. Like, it's not even like, say, you can say, like, oh, yeah, it's, you know, maybe half a fight, a full fight. No, it's not even that. Essentially, you kind of just had the same exact round. A little bit weirder, though, I will say. Again, this has been a really interesting series, but I feel like we're starting to see both these teams lock in a little bit. And this first point, you have to remember how we saw Vivacity play it last time they were on defense. They bunkered down at the bottom of the valley. Granted, that did eat off a minute and a half before you really saw anything get going. Not going to be the case this time around, as you already see Axe go over to the D.Va. But I honestly would have loved to see him try it again, because you saw what an Interesting Pivot did last round. Just kind of fall back and really wait for someone to, like you said, poke their head out before they even did anything. And once they found that one kill to give them that advantage, they just collapsed in on them.
Yeah, that they did. So we'll see what comes to form here, as we already see the double D.Va coming out here, but with so much less time to deal with right here, it'll be fascinating to see, because remember, you know, you originally got through relatively quickly if you are Interesting Pivot. You had like maybe just under 2 minutes, which for Gibraltar, that's really respectable for the first point, but you need to find some success here once more, as Dex, they are playing really close here if you're Vivacity.
I mean, I understand it. They're already going to be able to find Elemental Guy, but this is a very interesting close hold here, because if you lose this fight, you basically give yourself up a lot of space. But look, we're already seeing them go back. Kashir going over to the Ramatra now. Surprised we're not seeing any more swaps come out here.
Honestly, that might just be enough to deal with that specific source right there. They're all being forced over on the inside, as Kashir is going to have to, like, eventually force this point somewhere, but they're just playing it super close, and as long as Axe stays in that mech, it's going to be really hard to really have to deal with anything else or really have something else. But the D-Mech does come through, very importantly so, and with Axe being taken out, this should be a matter of time kind of situation as everyone's going to be forced back. Makoto is trying to swing away at the fences, but it's going to be pulled down and finished off as the rest of everybody is going to be cleared out as well. But considering you push this thing to the OT, honestly, I think I'm fine with this.
You're fine with it, but at the same time, we start. Okay, I was gonna say, what swaps do we see come out here from Vivacity immediately over to the Malga, but nothing else. Cashier though gets off the Diva, gets off the Ramattra, goes straight over to the Diva. This could be an opportunity here very quickly if Vivacity goes in to try to end this overtime round quickly.
Yeah, they go to the underpass once more. How they play the support, remember, they burnt over a minute just being in this position right here. Now they go in, finds an amazing stomp onto Smacks, and now Cave has to be a hero for the squad, as unfortunately, they can't make it back in time for the touch. So, 39 meters, it's not a great distance, and the question is, what do you have to do if you're interesting pivot to make this happen? Because the Malga comp works under, on the underpass. If they tried the same thing with the Diva comp, I don't think it's going to work. It's going to be a bit of a rough situation if they do so.
It's going to be really rough. And that's the thing. You almost need to do exactly what Vivacity did. Like, really, you need to have a very close hold. That's it. That lasts about the same amount of time. Like, it's going to be difficult here for them because they could play the normal high ground and eventually fall down. But you look at where that card is. It's not even at the bottom of the valley. It's still technically going down. If you're Vivacity, you put yourself in a really, really good position here to be able to, all you need to do is win one fight and this map is over.
Yeah, that's all it takes right there. Now, we'll see how the adjustments go down, and the thing is that there aren't really many adjustments. Elemental Guy is over on the Reaper, which is a reasonable adjustment. Again, you're trying to burn down Axe as fast as possible. You see them playing this high ground for the moment, but the thing is, you cannot delay on this drop right here, because if you drop too early or too late, I imagine Vivacity is going to be such in a position where they can take full advantage of an act like that.
Yeah, they really are here. And look, they're still playing. You do see at the moment the high ground being played here by Interesting Pivot. They have to play very, very smart though. But Axe getting off of the Malga late, going over to the Diva instead. I would have actually just liked to see them stick with the Malga. But you immediately just look, you're seeing a lot of space be giving up here. Eventually, it will have to be Interesting Pivot coming down to play the card.
Yeah, will have to be indeed. But we're going to have to see everyone back out eventually, as someone's got to put their body over on the point here soon. It's going to have to be Cashier, and this is what I was worried about. Now they're separated from the rest of the team momentarily. They need to force more touches, and unfortunately, no one's really in a good position, as Elemental Guy is struggling to stay alive in there. Eventually, he's got the back out, but Temper gets taken out early. That is really significant, but unfortunately, the clear out is going to come through anyway, as Vivacity going to bring this over to match point. It's close, but Dex, it really does come back to what I said before. They drop too late, and unfortunately, they become more touches of desperation than an actual, like, full hold.
Yeah, and having that Vendetta made it very difficult for the tank there for Interesting Pivot to really get anything going. I mean, they had to kind of be playing their life a lot of the time. That Vendetta was able to kind of swing through defense matrix and do so much there. Cashier tried to keep touches on point as well, and you saw the Reaper as well try to do whatever they could to just keep pressure on it, but it just was a little bit too late. Like I said, they almost need to match what we saw Vivacity do. Just play that first room right there. Even if you lose the fight, you need to have people kind of stagger it out so very long there. And that was one thing that Vivacity really did that impressed me, because remember, it was the tank there for Vivacity that died first in that overtime round for them on the defensive side, but the other four members stayed alive so long that it worked out for them in the end. But again, another interesting map coming out there. Vivacity up 2-0 in this series, and now like I said, it looked like we started to see both the teams kind of lock in there towards around the midway point of that first round there on watch point. But now we're heading into what could be our final map of the night, and if you're Interesting Pivot, I mean, I imagine this series has not gone the way you wanted it to.
No, it definitely hasn't, but you've kept yourself in it to a degree, and that's the really important thing moving forward. As we see them decide to go with Gibraltar, their last opportunity to pick the map regardless of how long this series goes on. And when it comes to this ban, there's a couple of really interesting directions you could go with this X, because I think there was multiple issues that they were having to deal with for these first two maps.
Well, do you get rid of the Zarya? Do you get rid of the Diva? Do you get rid of the Venture? Do you get rid of the Vendetta? Do you get rid of the Kiri? I think you have a lot of options, and wow. That
Yeah, that was quick, huh?
either they didn't ban someone or the bans were so quick that we do not literally know. It did not pop up on screen for us.
So I saw the Vendetta come up. So interesting pivot, that is their ban. For Vivacity, obviously, we'll have to find out, but they knew immediately what theirs was. There was not much of a window there. We'll see what route we go.
Do you ban the diva? I think you ban the diva.
I think you ban the diva. You could do a very funny thing and just ban the cat for funsies, but I think you just ban the diva and force out the domina right here and just be able to go and play Mauga into it in a lot of senses. That's where my mind goes to, because diva's the one thing that has been able to help deal with the Mauga. Outside of that, though, there's not many solutions alive. As yeah, there it is.
Diva being banned out here, as we do know. Blizzard World could be our final map of the night. And I mean, I think for Vivacity, this is a really smart ban. Like you said, it's been one of the only things that's been able to kind of slow down this Mauga that we've been able to see from Axe. Outside that, though, I mean, you could play the Domina, but you saw what Axe was able to do that last map. You could play the Ramontra, but again, you've seen what Axe has been able to do with that so far as well. But again, it looks like we will have a sub this time. Elemental Guy, it looks like they're going to be out, and in for them will be Nodi.
Yeah, and I don't mind. Did decent stuff before on that first map, mainly kind of playing. We saw at sometimes playing the Mei. I think was dealing with a really unfortunate circumstance of getting just honestly consistently knocked off the map and not really able to show what they can do. But we'll see how things move forward here. As again, the Mei does come out here, which to be fair, I don't mind, because this now pivots into an excellent way of you bring in the Orisa, and the Orisa can sustain a lot from that Mauga. But again, it's not the same as the diva.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not the same. Not at all. But you're looking for a little bit more sustainability. I think that's one important thing that you kind of brought up there. You still have this Lucio Kiri backline, which, again, Jono's going to need to be able to help Cashier get in and out of places with speed, while Smack's going to have to be making sure they get all the healing in the world, and probably the Suzu being invested on them as well. Again, just no vendetta this map. You see Makoto actually shows the Tracer for the first time here tonight, I believe, from them. But Temper gonna be sticking with the Soj here. I'm kind of surprised by that. I mean, I've been really impressed with their adventure throughout the entire series.
I have as well, but I think you find a lot of value with the Sojourn, especially since it's active in this map. We saw it bound out back in map 1, which I think kind of tempted them to go down that route. But we'll see how it works out this time. Dex, as Temper's already looking for a head, hasn't found one quite yet. But they're doing this back rotation that we see all too often nowadays.
Ooh, wait, no, they're not. Axe is still on the outside.
What?
Okay, Axe is showing us tech, but you lose Makoto for it.
I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater in the house, I guess. His Axe, he's going to be able to hang around for a little bit here, but is going to get booted back in. He's going to have to try to run for the Mega Health Pack and gets a little bit of extra care, but they're still sustaining in this one.
I would think that's more a little bit Sunset Overdrive than Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
I mean, you're kind of right, though, honestly. 1080, if anybody remembers that classic game. As Temper goes down early, and with the DPS line cooked, taken care of, Axe still has sustainability in here and could potentially get out, but Cashier, yeah, Cashier's actually going to be burnt down. This fight's indeed not over, as Axe has all the sustain in the world.
Yeah, with both their supports right there, no one really focusing in on them. Finally, Fern will fall here, and now Morlock trying to keep themselves alive. Axe, though, very low, still kicking John, though, going to be able to shut that down, and now Morlock is, are they hiding?
What was hiding? And Jono gets credit, technically, for the boop, and that's going to be a nice little bit of charge, as they're going to be fully kept up with Morlock for that sound barrier.
2 minutes gone now, so that entire play coming out there from Vivacity kind of just backfires on them, as now half the time bank's gone and you're walking into a lot of ultimates on the other side. This is the moment right now for your interesting pivot that you could really take over this map here. You cannot let it slip by you, though.
Absolutely cannot. We'll see what goes down, though, over at Protocol, ready for Cabe, and Cabe found some semblances of success in the previous map of Gibraltar. We'll see if we get any here, as they're going up for it now, hoping to find a little bit of success. It's forcing everybody to kind of split up a little bit, as Makoto hit right in the back with that one. And that's going to be another fight. Third up in the load shot over onto Morlock, as they're going to help finish things off. And again, there's a reason why this guy right here has seen so many playoff games.
And you look at what was actually used there by Vivacity. You used Kitsune Rush, a very, very strong ultimate taken out pretty early in a very much a lost fight. But both DPS ultimates came out there from interesting pivots. So if you're Vivacity, you're not necessarily mad about that, but you have 3 ultimates coming up. But interesting pivot still has 3 ultimates as well. The beat, though, I think is going to be able to cover this team. However, Smack still has that Kitsune Rush, like I said, online. That could be a huge difference maker here. Cage fight, though, for Axe. You're looking for that here very early, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine you might want to sound barrier yourselves in, so Morlock has to use it, and you can finish up Ratch where it says, oh my god!
Oh my
Smax
goodness!
gets jumped, gets pulled down! I cannot believe what I've witnessed, and unfortunately, Cabe is in there as well. Sound barrier comes out. It's going to turn into a 4v4 as Axe is hanging there for a hot second, but still, Kashir does have a solution around the corner, is going to be able to have that Terror Surge active, but really needs to play safely as the rest of the line is just being run down. They're going to pull back in one here, and Morlock going to be taken down as a result, and Makoto trying to get out alive. Such will not be the case, and now with less than 30 seconds over here, Axe just needs to die.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I think it's going to give him just enough time for one final touch. But if you are interesting pivot, I like what they're doing here. They're pushing up. They're trying to take all the space in the world, making sure that push is going to be very, very difficult. Axe, though, I think this is honestly the worst thing they could have done. Swapping over to maybe the slowest tank in the game, basically saying, okay, Morlock, Makoto, up to you guys to go get this touch.
And Makoto's not going to be able to realistically get it. Morlock dies as a result, and now it's all about Makoto. It's got to be the Makoto show. Blades online, and they're going to start cutting through this back line. Cleanse is there, though. It's going to be able to get rid of one. I don't think that's going to maybe be enough, though, as Fern doesn't get taken out with the spear, actually. Gets pushed off momentarily, but everyone else is pushed off. They're trying to retouch, but they shall not. And regardless of what happens, we'll have another map in this series. But obviously, if you're interesting pivot, you would love to take this one away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for all the momentum we were talking about Vivacity having, I think it's all out the window. That was a terrible round. Honestly, it was. Like I said, 2 minutes to get the first fight done and dusted. Yeah, you were almost able to have Axe and the support line there be able to turn it, but it just wasn't enough. And then didn't really ever seem like they had a concrete plan going into the rest of the fights they really started. I mean, a good job by Interesting Pivot taking what Vivacity gave them that round there with fights, because they came out looking like the much better team. And now, I mean, all they need is a tick, which it should be easy, but I mean, we just saw a full hold, so I'm not going to say it's impossible that we just see a draw.
You never know. Ultimately, we've seen crazy things happen. This is the one type of map that really kind of calls for that kind of thing. So we'll see the adjustment. I like the fact they're bringing over to the tried and true with Axe back on the Mauga. The interesting thing, though, is they still have Makoto out on that Symmetra. So they're basically trying to focus on just making Kashir's life as difficult as humanly possible. Because if you have a Mauga and a Sim looking at you at the same time, I don't know if there's any healing in the world that's going to keep you alive through that.
Yeah, but at that same moment, you're going to have 2 heroes focusing on one person. That's just basically saying, okay, the rest of the team go focus on the other 3. You have a numbers advantage there. So you just have to still play smart. I think Noni on this may still going to cause a little bit of a difficult problem here, because Axe is going to probably want to play aggressively on this Malga. Because, again, that's their whole entire thing. Makoto, though, almost gets taken out very, very early. There's some nice shots coming out from both Cabe and Nodi.
Definitely so. Let's rock on forward. They managed to kind of go through as they have to play back with this comp is the biggest thing. As Temper is taken out incredibly early here from Cabe. TP to get Axe in there. Axe, though, booped off immediately. Cabe is also forced around. Is in a bit of a rock and a hard place, but they need to go back and touch the point, and they're not going to do that. Well, that's interesting. They full invest, and unfortunately don't keep somebody on the point to actually potentially even get value out of that. Oh, that's rough. It's not the worst thing I've seen, but it is a little on the rough side, isn't it?
It's rough. It's rough. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to really put it other than just it's really, really rough.
You know what? This is gonna be even better. I hit the 10,000 millisecond fade. So that's fun. We double down on that. But yeah, that's a little rough on that one moving forward. But we were gonna get a 4th map regardless, Dex, no matter whether C9 or not, whether they recovered. We're gonna move forward with that, and we know we're gonna head over to Atlas, and the Orisa is taken out back on the spot.
immediately. I mean, just instantly. We've seen some really quick bans come out here from Vivacity again. I mean, they were able to come out on top on Watchpoint Gibraltar, but this last map, like I said, whatever momentum they had from those first two map victories, I feel like it's all but gone. They've just played so unlike what we've seen them play in the previous series on Wednesday against Element Garden and the first two maps in this series tonight. Like I said, it always seemed like they kind of knew what the plan was going into fights. They knew what the first target was. This time around, though, it was like, okay, hey, we have this 2-0 lead. We're going to try some interesting stuff, like Axe running over the roof 3 times. Granted, it looked cool. I'll say it looked cool as hell, but it didn't really lead to much.
No, it really didn't, and that's rough. I like the presentation. I like going for it. Why not? But it just really doesn't work out. And maybe it could have. We could have been saying something entirely different before if they go into that first fight and get the success that I think they were really looking for. But no, they do not get that. But we head into the 4th map. Again, Arisa banned out. We'll see what the other band's going to be. I don't know what route you can realistically take here. That's not a bit of a double-edged sword. But the Venture is going to be your ban. And honestly, that makes pretty good sense.
Yeah, and then the only, I think, non-double-edged sword that you could have taken here, really, like I said, we've seen Venture throughout the night here for Vivacity. And I was surprised we didn't see it last map, because that has been a big player for them here. But it looks like we have a sub coming in for Vivacity. First time, I think, first time this season where I actually seen them make a sub. Fern out, Savage in.
And that will be interesting to see. I have not seen Savage, at least not in an extremely long period of time. We'll see what this brings to the table, though, because if you bring in somebody else, especially in the support category, you figure you're changing things up, that maybe you're not going to run the Kiriko anymore. Maybe they will, ultimately, but we'll have to see what the scenario is, as getting out the gate, the Moira is being shown, which, honestly, I gotta be honest, I'm falling for the bait. I think that's gonna happen.
It could happen, and we've seen it happen on this map before. I feel like Moira still definitely does have a place in the meta. It's a very delicate balance, though. Very delicate. The moment that the Moira kind of gets shut down a couple times in a row, you have to get off it, or else you're just hurting your team here. But this is definitely a map where you can see the Moira find a decent amount of value, especially with Cashier on this Diva, and Cave probably going right back over to this Genji outside after the TP coming out from them. I mean, or actually no, going over to the Tracer instead. But still, I think the Moira, you're looking for a little bit more consistent damage, and I think a little bit more consistent healing as well here. Coalescence, still a strong ultimate. I will say that, still a strong ultimate in this one. But again, Cashier and Axe going to be the one to watch here. But, Temper.
Yeah, down really early. Axe is cut off from the rest of the team. Eventually, the rest of the team is there. Unfortunately, the team maybe wishes they weren't there right now, as they're going to be fully finished off right here. And Makoto is going to take one on the way out, but Axe, unfortunately, shall not do the same. Fast Tech coming in here through interesting pivot. A team that feels like they're playing wildly different than what we saw in that original map.
I mean, yeah, you go back to map 1, this is a completely different team at this point. I mean, I don't know what we necessarily saw map 1 from interesting pivot, because it was a lot of swaps and just the stuff that wasn't working. Now everything's working out for them. Gonna be seeing the more here, one more fight. I think this is the fight where it's really make or break here for Savage and this pick. But nice ice wall coming out, sectioned off half the team away from that Malga.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. We'll see as Big Cleanse comes through. It's going to give an opportunity to cut them back, as you are going to get the free flip coming through here, as Cabe has a pulse bomb right around the corner, and he's focused on staying alive instead, as everyone jumps down to the point. So high ground's able to be taken over. They're going to start taking the aggression here, and now with the pulse bomb in hand, you're looking for a good target to throw it after. There's no really amazing target, quite frankly, as it can be thrown out there. Almost lands on top of it right here. Savage has to run for the life, but Big Freeze comes down onto 2. They're cleared out, and for Temper, it's just a bit of stall before this fight is over.
Yeah, nobody's been a difference maker on this May so far in these last 2 maps. They've been able to find a lot of value with their blizzards. Ice walls have been great. I mean, this is what you want from your May player, and I think it's causing a lot of problems here for Vivacity. Now, though, Vivacity can come into this next fight with both Beat and Cage online. But look at the other side, Beat, Kitsune Rush, and their own bomb here. So they're not necessarily coming into the best of ultimates or best of places right now if you're Vivacity. Interesting pivot, though, looking to keep the momentum going here.
Absolutely love to. Axe does have this cage fight ready to go, but still a sound barrier to be thrown in there just in case. But here comes all that aggression. They try to catch him down. They do get Jono. It's going to catch on to most everybody. Jono is just forced and bullied into the corner. We know what gift we're thinking of here, as they get bullied. cleaned out. And Kashir and Cabe are just going to try to stall to this 99. That they will do. But Kashir gets out of there with that mech intact.
And Kashir doing a good job just backing out. Cabe going to be able to escape as well, but you look back over now the other side for Vivacity. They still have a very good opportunity to win this point here, get themselves some momentum back in this series. You have Death Blossom, Sundering Blade, and Coalescence online here, but you have to deal with the bomb and Kitsune Rush. At some point, Smacks could probably throw out this Kitsune Rush first, just to get stuff going.
Yeah, but still, you have quite a lot to deal with right here. You go from behind, you're going to be able to interrupt, but they get deleted immediately. They get forced back. Nobody goes down to that Death Blossom from Temper, but now it's Coalescence trying to keep everyone alive momentarily, but still the Kitsune Rush gives them so much room to work with. Big Stick as Temper can't hit the TP in time, and Axe is running out of care, running out of options as they are going to be forced back. No more touch given. First point going to head over to Interesting Pivot as they're going to get a couple of nice exit frags here as everyone is going to get wiped out.
Dakota might be the only one to actually escape here, but they're going to be chased down for a brief moment by both Kashir. Actually, no, the entirety of Interesting Pivot trying to get rid of this Vendetta, and Cabe going to be able to find them. Now, do we see more swaps come out? Yes, Temper, Axe making swaps, Savage also making the swap there as well. So a completely different composition now for Vivacity. And this is now, it's not necessarily make or break just yet, but you need to get something going here fast, because look at what you're walking into. Another Blizzard from Nodi. They've been great with them all series long. A bomb for Kashir, a good remech tool, and a beat about to be online. Pulse bump from Cabe, not that far away either.
Yeah, but Makoto going to go on early, and we saw how much success this has had throughout the day, but no one is going to begin to even show their face. Nodi is going to let this freeze go, though. Is not going to find any initial targets right there. Axe is going to be forced into a really awkward position as the rest of their team is going to start falling on down, and Makoto would love to take one on the way out. Unfortunately, such a thing will not happen. Another big fight here for Interesting Pivot, taking down 108, and only having used the freeze for that fight, too.
Yeah, and you got out Sundering Blade from the other side, so you're happy with that. And look at what you're coming up to here. You still have Pulse Bomb, Beat, your own bomb, your own remake tool, and probably Smacks building up to another Kitsune Rush here. I mean, again, like I said, that Vivacity squad we saw back in Maps 1 and Maps 2, I think it's gone at this point. I think Interesting Pivot has firmly established itself in this series.
Oh, 100% has. Morlock gets hit with a nice stick here as well. So it's going to stop things even more as, again, early deaths are going to cause them to not even get a proper fight in here. And the fact that they don't get a proper fight means that Axe is not going to generate basically any ult charge.
Yeah, but you will have Beat and you will have Pulse Bomb. And probably Kitsune Rush ready to go here for Vivacity coming into this next engagement at some point. But you're going to have to deal with basically the same ultimates for Interesting Pivot. And I just don't necessarily know if Vivacity has anything to really throw at them here.
Yeah, Smacks stays alive, gets Kitsune Rush just in time. Barrier going to be used by both teams. Stay alive, though. Kashir has a bomb to remech. Bombs on both sides, by the way, but still Axe is trying desperately to get this online. Is getting burnt down, trying to stay in it. Will eventually do so. Unfortunately, doesn't get it on in time. Temper, Morlock, Makoto all trying to hang in there, but perhaps it is all going to be in fully as they are going to be cleared out left and right. Temper, the last one standing, taken out. And man, this has been an insane performance for Interesting Pivots.
Cabe and Kashir haven't died.
Wow.
Cabe's 20-0.
My God.
Like, you're starting to see the performance that we kind of thought we would see from this Interesting Pivot team. Like we were kind of thinking maybe at the start of the series when I said, hey, this is a really good team on paper. And then we saw whatever the hell that first map was, honestly. It was not what I expected from them. But now they're starting to really warm up. I think they're starting to really gel together as a team. This is their first game. Grab, though, grabs the plants.
Hey, the plants can be very deadly if not watered properly, but we'll see what value we get right here. Freeze is back online, obviously looking for Axe. Big time on that one. He's going to throw it down and cause separation. It is going to cause Savage to be caught out, of all people, and now you put in a really rough situation because while your supports are struggling a little bit to stay alive, Cabe still has the Pulse Bomb to work with. You have a bomb to be able to sustain a point for a while, but unfortunately, you're giving so much to Axe right here. His Pulse Bomb's thrown out. Gets nothing as Axe being harassed. Eventually he's going to fall down. But the question is it too little too late?
I mean, if you can get you out of the mech here, they're going to use the bomb. Pulse Bomb, though, going to stick onto the mech. Makoto will fall as Jono coming back in here. And now what was looking like maybe the first opportunity for Vivacity to get a point cap here. This map, ever since the first point, just falls by the wayside as Kashir able to keep their, I think, perfect map alive.
That's been really good for them so far. But still, you're working up to these sound barriers again. Makoto, though, he's going to have the Sundering Blade that, to be fair, doesn't care about a sound barrier. It doesn't care if you have one or not. It can do so much damage regardless of the situation. We see coming up here, trying to cut down Jono. Isn't able to do so properly, but is getting plenty of space as here we go. Jono, let that sound barrier rip as it's going to cause that to have to move over there. Doesn't get anybody with it, unfortunately. So you're going to see the aggression be taken forward as Morlock lets that sound barrier go. Only catches onto themselves, really. So I don't know how much this is realistically going to change X's. Axe is trying to hang in there, but so much of their team has fallen. Cabe and Smack's the only ones alive here as Cabe, unfortunately, is going to have to surrender at this point.
Axe, though, gonna fall right there. Temper, though, again, you need this DPS line. I think we've seen Axe slowly kind of not have the best performances here this map. You need this DPS line. You need a Makoto. You need Temper to really start to step up here for this Vivacity's team. And you have a long way to go in that one there. If you look over at the other side, Kitsune Rush, Pulse Bomb, Blizzard about to be online for an interesting pivot. They could afford to give that fight right there. They really could. Now, though, as you do see everyone coming back in, I like how they're rotating around the map, but Temper needs to keep themselves safe here. They cannot be the first one to fall.
Definitely can't, but Consider Rush might force somebody's hand right here. Pulse Bomb is still ready to go. Lots of bodies available for Cave. Would love to find something. Pulse Bomb thrown in to a big crowd, but Cleanse is timed perfectly, and Savage is going to let this late Consider Rush go and take a ton of space here as Nodi is going to go down. Nobody going to freeze initially. Rough situation to be in if you are Axu. Let's go of this crowd. Everybody's inside of it. Cleared out. That'll be this third point settled away as finally gonna see Vivacity put themselves on the board and honestly look extremely strong in the process.
Yeah, desperation comes out for them and they look like a completely different team because Sheer now giving up on the Diva, going over to the Ramatra instead. And we saw this battle a little bit earlier on, going all the way back to the first map of this series of Lijiang, where, I mean, Axe looked great on the Zarya against that same Ramatra we're seeing come out now. But, I mean, I think if you're Vivacity, I think you finally maybe got the monkey off your back right there. I think you're finally going to be able to play a little bit better now that you're finally got a fight to go your way. But still, you have some ultimates going into this one here, so you can keep the momentum rolling.
Big opportunity is among them right here as Makoto is going for another Sundering Blade. Gashir is going to block out most of that damage, but still, she gets doubled down with a Pulse Bomb. There's nothing you can do in that scenario. And unfortunately, without your tank, you're not going to be able to realistically take this point away as everyone else just needs to focus on surviving.
Yeah. Cave, though, at least being a little bit of a pest in that backline and drawing attention from both Temper and Morlock there. So it's going to keep a little bit of a split there here as now if the rest of Interesting Pivot comes back in, it's going to be a 3v4 for them. So you should be able to just dive on someone and Axe seems to be the target.
Yeah, and Axe is just getting frozen like crazy, and you're going to be able to keep everything alive. Naughty put under a scenario with no cooldowns. Should just be killed here, and 100% will. And now this map has just completely taken a 180.
And I love what we saw there from Makoto. They noticed Ice Block was used in the moment that they popped out, but they said, hey, this Mei is vulnerable, and went right in and got them out. Mei, and this Nodi on this Mei has been a big problem for Vivacity. This entire map, a big problem. But you now look over at Interesting Pivot. Pulse Bomb, beat. You're going to have Kitsune Rush online this fight here to go. A long way to go on this point, but hey, you need to get something going your way here right now.
Yeah, and just access so much care. Sound barrier use. John's going to let it loose as well. Catches on to everybody, importantly so. And now Cade with his Pulse Bomb would love to finally hit somebody here and get some value out of it. But unfortunately has really struggled throughout, honestly, almost the entire night to be able to do so. But Freeze is thrown up by Naughty. Axe is going to be caught up in it this time as Graviton Surge comes out. Big Cleanse comes up as, unfortunately, Pulse just going to hit the ground. Axe gets rid of themselves to get rid of Naughty, unfortunately. In this scenario, it's not going to mean a whole lot here as Cabe manages to get one on the way out, has two more hanging in there. It would love to get rid of Makoto. Pulls it back, is going to hit the recall. It's down to the 1v1 decks. 1v1 that, by the way, they're winning at least for the moment.
Yeah, but you're starting to see some members of this Vivacity squad come back in. They might have to just give it the point flip here for a brief moment, knowing that you're going to come in stronger. But you look over at the other side now. You have the Annihilation and their own Kitsune Rush online. This could be a moment where Interesting Pivot really is able to potentially steal this map away from them. Even though they were the better team those first 2 points, it seems like you're finally starting to see Vivacity find their stride here.
Yep, Pulse Bomb is ready to go. If you catches over onto Jono, it could be potential lights out over on this point. But Sundering Blade being used by Makoto. Just gonna cut down Kashir a little bit. Again, Kashir, who has just been taking every ultimate in the world, it feels like, as Temper. Forcing the recalls, hanging around in the back, but Makoto down early. Puts you in such a rough situation, especially as Axe forced to get out of this fight. His Pulse Bomb comes out, not going to stick to anybody either. And now, Final Fight territory, and they have nothing online.
Yeah, and that's just a disaster there from them. You need something from the Sundering Blade, you need something from the Pulse Bomb, nothing from them. Now Annihilation and Pulse Bomb ready for the other side. Like I said, this could be interesting pivot, forcing us back to a map 5, which after those first 2 maps, Hunter, I would not have believed you if you said we're going to a map 5.
Maybe not would have either. Pulse Bomb goes out, will not find the proper stick, and now it's Double trying to run down Axe, who will eventually go down, and now they need to win this without their tank in play. It's going to be so rough, especially as Kashir lets this list, still has the Nemesis form ready to go. Morlock cut down, and a sound barrier to push them back down. As Makoto doing everything they can to hang in here, but this is going to propel them forward to a 5th and final map.
Again, like I said, after those first 2 maps, I would never have believed you if you said, yeah, this series is going 5, but we have started to see a little bit of a different, interesting pivot team come out here in these last 2 maps. Really, you look back at Blizzard World, the great defensive hold they had there that first round, and the weird plays coming out from Vivacity. And then you go into this map here. Vivacity just got off to a terrible start. Interesting pivot. Finally got off to a really, really good start on one of these maps. And then Vivacity won their 1 point. It seemed like they were finally starting to get back into the groove of things, back into the swing of things. Won that point, able to carry it over, got up 99-0 on that 4th point. But then they gave it all away. An interesting pivot. Again, this is their first game of the season. We expected that rust. It is now gone. It's going to be best v best heading into our final map of the night of Vivacity. And yet, almost immediately again, Vivacity with a quick ban, making sure they do not see the Mei in this map.
Yep, and I don't blame them in the slightest. That Mei was really difficult to have to deal with, so just take it out here and now. And that's kind of the way their bans have been. Their bans have been entirely reactionary, which, by the way, isn't a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. But you have seen interesting pivot consistently find something to replace it that works as well, if not better, honestly. They get rid of the Diva because they think it can shut down the Mauga, and it can, but then they go Orisa and do so anyway. They free up, the Mauga by getting rid of the Orisa, and they just pull in Mei, and they just do what they should have done back on map 1, and just make Axe's life as miserable as possible, and now they're doing the exact same thing here, and to be fair, it was the best choice they had.
Yeah, and I mean, I would expect right now the ban coming out from Interesting Pivot should be Amalga if they haven't banned it out just yet. I don't remember if they have, but I can already tell right now you will be seeing Morlock come back in this time. Actually, no, my bad. Fern come back in this time around. As Savage is going to step back out here again for Vivacity, but still lineups being finalized. A very, very important map for both these teams to get their season started. Like I said, this is technically the first game for Interesting Pivot with a reschedule happening Wednesday for Vivacity. I mean, they won that first game Wednesday, win the second game here tonight, 2-0. They would be one of the only teams probably to be 2-0 heading into next week, which would be a very, very big thing for this team that just came up from that expert tier.
No, it would be a massive boon moving forward and seeing what they're able to do with that momentum, especially, again, with having a really difficult starting schedule. Going with that, it is so meaningful. So we'll see what we have in terms of a response here from Interesting Pivot and what their ban is going to be. I think there's a lot to take into consideration. Remember, I believe the Mauga already has been banned out. I think earlier on got banned out. Did it get banned out, actually?
I don't think it has been.
Do you do it? Well, here's the thing. Do you do it now? Because you have found solutions to Axe, but yeah, I mean, Axe literally has the Mauga profile picture on their avatar, so I think with that quick of a selection, I think it should just be Mauga.
It's Mauga because I think you've already banned out the Zarya here, which maybe the only other tank that Axe has been able to consistently show us throughout the night. And you have to remember, they cannot focus on the DPS line because, well, Vivacity banned out the Mei. So you're looking at the tank line, look at the support line. Support's been pretty set in stone these last couple of maps. That Lucio Kiri, unless you really want to try to mess something up there. But I don't think neither team, or I don't think at least Interesting Pivot wants to do that. I think they want to be sticking with what they've been playing. So I think Mauga, or if you haven't banned out Zarya, which I think you have, is the only options realistically.
Yeah, I think that's really all you've got in the bank to put out that isn't a double-edged sword. But it looks like, yes, indeed, it is the Mauga, as was expected. So now we're going to head into this 5th and final map of Vivacity to end this phenomenal series, honestly.
Yeah, again, the series started off so weird, so weird. At least I believe it did. I don't know how you feel about it, Hunter, but Li Jiang was a map. I think the easiest way to say it was just a map. It didn't necessarily seem like Interesting Pivot was comfortable with what they were playing on really anything for the most part. I mean, I think you saw 3 or 4 tank swaps. You saw multiple DPS swaps. I don't think the only thing you didn't really see much there was a support swap. Maybe you only saw one come out from them there, but they've slowly settled in. And you started to see this Interesting Pivot team really play like the team that, well, when you look at it, like I said, this is a really good team on paper, start to play like that team that you see on paper. They're settling into the series. They're now settling into, I believe, the season as well. And hey, how about what better way to win your first series of the year than a reverse sweep?
Yeah, hey, this would be our first sweep of the season, but it's already our first map 5 of the season within our first week here for Faceit League Season 8. It's our first, yeah, it's our first.
It was our first map 4 as well, to be fair.
Was it? No, what was it? Yeah, I guess it is, yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right, well, we'll see. As for now, obviously no Mauga on the scene, as Axis is just going to pivot back over towards that Zarya and Seneca Shear, not having to worry about the Mauga. Gonna be on the Ramatra to start.
Yeah, and again, I think they immediately said, okay, the Mauga's banned out. Let's go Ramatra. We expect Axe to be playing the Zarya, which, hey, look what Axe is playing, the Zarya. Now you look at this DPS line here for Interesting Pivot. Cave and Nodi, they have been just on fire these last couple maps, finding picks very early on. Temper showing us a Soj again. I feel like at some point, unless they get off to a really good start on it, we might end up seeing that venture again, because I thought Temper was playing excellently on it and just causing a lot of problems for Interesting Pivot. Makoto, though, this Vendetta, you have to be very in sync with Axe here. You're gonna be looking to help him get a lot of charge early on.
That you will. That combo is really good, but still, it does have to be played in a correct manner. You can see Axe is trying to build up to something right now, is eventually going to pull that trigger, going to get a little bit off of that, but still, it's really about both tanks being able to stay alive here as much as they can, but Axe is now hiding for their very life, somehow has managed to stay alive through all of that, and nobody goes down in response. Axe is literally playing a good old game of Dead by Daylight right now, and for them, fortunately, they're winning it.
I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemies to play a game of Dead by Daylight. But I mean, here's the thing: both these competitions are basically just built for sustain. The the Ramatra and the Zarya, they are just gonna try to live as long as they possibly can, because the longer they live in these fights, the stronger they will honestly get here. Especially if you're Axe building up those charge on the bubbles. But you look at Cabe, already 70% to an override protocol, but Fern gonna have this Kitsune rush here pretty early on, and that could be a big difference maker here, Hunter, at just being able to win the fight here and get this first checkpoint, which is very, very key in this map.
Yeah, puts them in such a good situation, and now you're kind of just hoping that Axe takes a bunch more damage and builds up to that, because the moment that is up next, they're going to pull the trigger on this. They're going to move forward, and they're going to take so much space as a direct result, and there it goes. Going all in on the right here. Tons of damage to work with, and you are Axe, forcing Kashir out of here. Unfortunately, I think you need to prioritize lives here. You're going to have to give up this checkpoint, and the 2-minute take is pretty fast, all things considered.
Nodi was sitting in the backline there, just trying to make sure maybe they get a last-second stall, but not going to be able to do that, as it was Temper that was actually just keeping a check on them here. But Nodi's been doing a good job just keeping some distraction on the backline here. However, like you said, 2 minutes gone, checkpoint now in control here for Vivacity and Hunter. This is around the point where me and you should start talking about 50-50 Overwatch, because this definitely falls into that.
Oh, it heavily does. There's a lot of time, obviously, to deal with, but you're already in that conversation now, and the question is how much you have to invest to go and win this fight. I imagine K was probably going to go up in the air here in about 3 seconds and let this loose, but Kitsune Rush is going to be thrown in to give them a little bit of space. Makoto is hanging around the back line now, is unfortunately going to lose out on their Curious. Cabe trying to stay through alive all of that damage. Everyone really wanting Cave dead, by the way. Unfortunately, it will not happen, as Nodi gets rid of 2, is going to help clean up some more as they'll win this fight. But everybody over on the side of Vivacity is going to get those forward spawns with 4 ultimates alive for both sides.
Yeah, the fact that you only had to use one ultimate there for Interesting Pivot is huge for them, because like you said, they're going to have 4, but same thing can be said there for Vivacity, 4 as well. Beat's going to be big here for both teams, because you have to imagine Annihilation, going to force out the beat, Grab, going to force out the beat. Cave with its override protocol, though, they've been very good with it so far throughout the night. Watch out for that here pretty early on this fight, as they are waiting, I think, for honestly a little bit of a group up here from them, and there it is.
Yep, and here we go, looking to cut somebody down, but Cabe hides themselves away. They'll get pulled down, but still don't know how much it's going to matter as Sound Barrier going to call in one, crucially, as Warlock and Nodi both out early, but Temper still has a trigger to pull here, and the trigger indeed has been settled in, hoping to find somebody click ahead here, and they find one within Jono, and that could be enough to pull the trigger, but Kashir does not want to let this fight go here and now, is going to throw everything to burn Axe away. It'll happen successfully so. Dex, I don't know if it's enough to turn this one around, though, as Kashir is still being dealt copious amounts of damage.
But they still have smacks where they're being able to kind of keep them up through this. Makoto could eventually fall here. And you have to remember the spawns were, I believe, reset. So everyone's taking a long walk back here. But you look at that time bank, Hunter. Still, this is 50-50 Overwatch territory. That barrier has barely moved at all. So you're perfectly fine taking that. All the ultimates are gone. You're going to have Kitsune Rush here pretty soon for both teams. And I imagine that they're going to be dueling again, as always, for the most part. Last time, though, Smack is Kitsune Rush was able to find the more value here. Fern needs to get something going here pretty early on. Is they're going to be the first one to throw it out.
Yep, and now you're going to pivot back a little bit, and now the Kitsune Rush is thrown directly back in their face. Unfortunately, no one's really going to get anyone off of this, as Cabe actually goes down. And unfortunately, without Cabe, this fight is not really in the realm of winnability unless you find someone out here in the next 2 seconds.
And I think you might be able to find someone out here in the next 2 seconds, but actually Smack's fighting Morlock, which was one that I did not expect to see.
Yeah, but now you see the boom over on Axe, who's separated from the team, is eventually going to go down, and Fern, as much as they can try, they're going to be able to kind of start turning this one around as Makoto is back over in the fight. Fern is running for their livelihood, eventually going to be hunt down as Kashir doing everything they can to hang in here, find more bodies, and Makoto pulls back momentarily.
They're going to have to pull back momentarily here, but that's a disaster. Cave getting off of the Emre for the first time tonight, going over to this Soj instead, and immediately finds value with it. Makoto, they're going to come back in with that Sundering Blade here very, very soon, but look at Kashir. Has his Annihilation online here in a moment, I imagine. And that could be a big difference maker here as this fight really starts to get to a point where you're going to see it being contested for this checkpoint. Makoto first one to go in. Now it's going to be followed up by Axe.
Yeah, and this fight is so significant. But losing Jono is not the way you want it to go down, and they are going to pull everything in. Annihilation is used in the 4v5. Makoto and Fern both really low. Eventually, Fern's going to be fully separated as they will get the checkpoint. That's a victory in its own right. Let's be perfectly fair, as Makoto's going to try to get out of there alive, is trying to, and looks like they'll be able to for the moment, as Temper's going to start moving in. Cole, all right, God dang. They're trying to move in with the overclock, and unfortunately, not really going to get anything.
Kashir, 1 death so far, almost 9,000 damage mitigation. They've been playing this Mirage perfectly. Grab though, out!
Oh no! Oh, it's disastrous. 3 go down. Everyone else just needs to die over on the point as they'll be done and taken care of. But while Makoto gets 4, cleans up a really good fight. Everybody going to get forward spawns once more here for interesting pivots.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to see interesting pivot come back in, I imagine, on the downhill here. They're going to have to really take an early fight here, and they're going to beat online, followed up by probably Kitsune Rush from Smacks. On the other side, Beak going to be ready for Morlock. Fern will have Kitsune Rush, but Fern's Kitsune Rushes have found almost 0 value this entire map. They've been dueling at most times, but normally when you see Smacks throw theirs out, you just see Vivacity just completely disengage from the fight. And I don't necessarily know if I like that kind of play from them. They're playing too safe, I feel like.
Yeah, to be fair, this is rough to have to walk into regardless. Let's make sure that's really apparent. But Act with themselves in a really awkward situation is able to get out of it. But now you're going to see some of this position being given up momentarily. But Makoto is still holding on the corner. Kitsune Rush comes up, and you're at the sound barrier just to keep things alive. Morlock directly back. Smack Supply going to pull this trigger momentarily. That they will. Whoever gets his first Elim is going to be sung the praises as Makoto gets rid of 1. And unfortunately, while Cabe tries finding the headshot, it doesn't come through. And while Cabe is going to try to play the hero here, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work out.
Most one came out there from Nodi as well. It actually stuck on to Axe, but they use a bubble to keep themselves alive here, much like they are right now. The support coming in to keep that Zarya alive. And finally, the aggressive plays coming out there now from Vivacity to give themselves a little bit more push here, as they should be able to get back to the barrier and extend their lead. Cave going back over to the Emre, ditching the Soj here again after a couple fights where it looked very good for them. Kashir, though, the only ultimate online here for interesting pivot. You look at the other side. You have Grab, you have Overclock, you have a Sundering Blade not that far away. You need this fight to go long, but losing temper early on, Hunter, I feel like already puts them in a spot where they're just going to be dying here on bot.
Yeah, 96 should be the progress right here, as Axe is going to hang in here, get as much charge as you can, as the supports, realize to kind of go die over on the point. Makoto, regardless of how the fight's gone, gets one on the way out, and is in a interesting position and should die here, but again, forward spawns will be the case for them.
Yeah, forward spawn's gonna be able to come here, but you look at it, 90 seconds left to go. You're down 40 meters. The fact that you did not use that annihilation there for Kashir, it puts you in a really good spot, but you still look over the other side. You kind of wanted that fight to go maybe a little bit longer if you're interesting pivot there, because you wanted to get some of those ultimates out. Granted, that could have been that could have backfired on them quickly there, but they still need to be able to get something here early on as Makoto goes straight towards that back line.
Yeah, and Cabe, unfortunately, is just going to be dusted out there. Makoto going to try to cut some bodies down, and Kashir is actually trying to turn this one around. Temper going down is a way to do so, but Smacks just gets walked into it. Now, you have a Graviton Surge, but you don't realistically need it here, because Kashir and Jono have to focus on their own survival, a survival that has been cut off from the knees.
And you might be able to get back to the barrier right now if you're Vivacity, but this is exactly what you want, Hunter. This is 50-50 Overwatch territory. They want us to be able to get it back up here, and then, honestly, you could take a fight. And if you're Vivacity, the only reason you use ultimates is because, hey, you will know if we win it, if we use these ultimates, we're going to win this fight and end this map. Other than that, let the other team, let Interesting Pivot throw out all the ultimates.
That's what you want, ultimately, but big fight coming online, unfortunately. You need solutions here because there's a Graviton Surge available. You don't have a sound barrier for it, but Morlock does. Fern has their ult online. You hit one good grab here. This one should be done and dusted, as you see Kashir do everything they can to stay alive on the point. Fern taking care of, though, puts this thing in a really weird scenario where the question is, do you still pull the trigger? Do you move forward? You see Axe contemplating it so heavily. At this point, though, the answer is quickly becoming yes, actually, as they're pulling back into the 3v3. Morlock jumps back in with the sound barrier, but Kashir with the letting things go. What? And unfortunately, John pulls the trigger. And wow, they're going to win the fight off of this. I think that might be, no, that is a massive mistake.
Morlock using the beat was a mistake. You're right. That's a massive mistake from John. That fight was over. But look, like I exactly said there for Vivacity, you want to make this fight, drag it out, force ultimates out from the other side. They got 3 out, and both the support ultimates and probably the scariest ultimate on the other side with that annihilation, but still Pulse Bomb and Override Protocol online here now for Interesting Pivot. They are not out of this one just yet, but they're walking into a very uphill battle. Pulse Bomb, though, going to be saved by the bubble.
Yep, it had to be used, unfortunately. Needed to go for it. Now, Cabe, the last hope remaining here with the ultimate. You're going to see the Graviton Surge come through, catches on to 2 as they're going to be being burnt away. Temper is starting to clear bodies out. Cabe, though, has gotten rid of 2, is keeping things alive momentarily, but it's just Nodi and Cabe left hanging in there, and they're being forced back further and further away. Axe, though, is eventually going to be hanging on with 1 health. Nodi is trying their darndest. Unfortunately, they're running out of time. They've run out of options, and they'll be cut down. Vivacity prevent the reverse sweep, take another win on the week to go 2-0.
Oh, that had to be stressful there for Vivacity. Like I said, if you're Interesting Pivot, you're able to come back into this series, and you looked probably like the better team in maps 3 and 4. But map 5, I mean, again, the Mauga ban made the most sense in the world. It really did. But like, I feel like it was going to be a tough decision anyway, because you had the Zarya, which I thought had actually been banned out before, but no, it wasn't. That was actually South America where we saw the Zarya get banned out in maps 1 and 2, so I was still thinking about that one. But I think that's been one thing that's been really impressive to see with Axe so far, that they have a deep pool when it comes to their tank line, or what the tank pool that they can play here. Zarya going over to the Diva a little bit, going over to, granted, I'm not going to necessarily talk much about the Orisa, but the Orisa, and then the Mauga. It puts the other teams in just such an interesting spot where it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to shut them down there. But hey, if you're Vivacity, you stop the reverse sweep. You're 2-0 going into next week. You're off to a great start. But like you said, Hunter, they have a couple tough matches ahead. Interesting Pivot, though. Lost their first one. Very close. Fought back. Forced the map 5 on almost reverse swept. But now they have another game, I believe, tomorrow or Sunday to try to bounce back over. I don't think it's the easiest one as well.
Yeah, taking a quick look over at what we have. Yeah, they have a game against Iliad Artemis, which Iliad Artemis will be really interested to see what they can do this season. Again, still have some really good members over on that squad. That will be really fascinating, as we'll obviously keep our eye out Sunday for that. It is a very late Sunday game, so obviously not going to see us there. But there's a lot of really good games coming up this week that I'm really excited for. Obviously, we'll formulate our own schedule, and as soon as we know it, y'all will know it as well. But I would say for a first week here, while there's definitely some touch and go situations, some server issues here and there, I think this is a good first week, and we ended on a really good game on top of that.
Yeah, a really good game, which, like I said, started off very weirdly, and I'll still stick to that. Lijiang Tower was a map of all time, but then you slowly started to see, especially through Watchpoint Gibraltar, both the teams kind of settle in, especially interesting pivot. They lost that map because I just don't think they expected the play that we saw from Vivacity in that overtime defensive round from them there, playing so far up, and then just good play for the rest of them, just stalling out that card as long as they could, forcing that time back to actually go into overtime. Third map, a big difference maker there. That was a great defensive hold there by Interesting Pivot. Fourth map as well. They were able to carry that momentum there on Atlas. I said steal a map, but man, those first 2 points were great plays there by Interesting Pivot. Fifth map, it was just back and forth. Again, we talked about 50-50 Overwatch coming into play there very early on, and I think that is what really helped Vivacity kind of go through that map. The fact that they got off to such a big lead and knew that they didn't necessarily have to push that aggression button a little bit, but when they did, they really made it count.
Yeah, they definitely made it count. So really good performance overall. Vivacity, who's able to show that they can kind of come back from a scenario like that. And for Interesting Pivot, I think it's important going forward knowing that, hey, they can come back from being down 2-0. They make it a really good game, put themselves really close to pulling it back. So that'll be important moving forward as they have a lot of early games here. Like I said, there's definitely some tough ones in there, but if they can pull some of these out, who knows what you could see for the future. And when it comes to Vivacity, they have a heck of a challenge next week here on Wednesday as they are taking on your defending champions of Season 7, Kintsugi, and that is going to be the test of a lifetime.
It's going to be a test, but I think that's the good thing for them. It really, I think, lets us know where the bar is with this team, because if they're able to be competitive against Kintsugi, they can be competitive against anyone. And I think that would be a big shock to a lot of the teams here in this Masters tier.
It'd be a really big shock. But obviously, we'll be looking out for these games, and as soon as we know what we're going to do, we'll throw it out there. But with so many games, it's definitely going to be a little difficult to pick. But hey, we appreciate y'all being here today. This ended up being a really fun game, and I'm really, really happy for it. So for the week, that's it for us on week 1 of Faceit League. But week 2, very quickly going to be around the corner, and we'll hope you'll join us for that time. So everyone out there, have yourselves a fantastic evening. Hope you have a good weekend. We'll see you next week for some more Faceit League action. Take care.